Hey, Dustin Vanoy here. So I've been trying to come up with some different terminology and concepts that I think is just absolutely fundamental if you're still just getting into this space. And also if you just want to know where I'm coming from, if I throw different words out there and I kind of interchange these terms. So let's not waste too much time. Let's get into this. But before I do, please do subscribe to this channel and like this video if it's useful for you. I've got another one that's coming out right at the same time as this. That's really more here's a way to get hands-on with Databricks and be successful here. So I really hope you'll check that out as well. And then obviously I'll continue to create videos when I can. And so subscribe and check that notification so that you can know when there's another thing coming up. All right, now to get into it. So AI-driven development is the term I'm going to use here on when I'm talking about using a coding tool that involves using an LLM, and it will end up writing a decent amount of the code for you. All right, let me define this AI-driven development a bit more. So it is a workflow where AI is the primary engine for generating, validating, and maintaining the code. In this situation, the developer's role shifts from writing code to directing the AI. And that's not as easy of a job as it probably sounds, but that's the reality. Here's the term I'm not using. Let's start with that. I'm not directly calling this vibe coding for all of the videos and training that I do. The reason for that is I think when you look back at the roots of the vibe coding term, there is a lot of strong, clear statements that the idea from a few of the people that brought that up to begin with is that you just relax, you type in some prompts, you let the AI do the work, you don't even bother reading the code and you ship it. And so I think, honestly, there are times for that type of work as well. But I think it's got this negative connotation with some people that you're not actually doing serious engineering, right? So other terms have come up that I would say, so I'm okay with vibe coding falling into this umbrella to me. If I'm building a production system with a team of people, it's not going to be the style of vibe coding I just talked about. They can still call it that. I have no problem with it. But the reality of what they're actually doing will not look like the vibe coding where you aren't in some way, shape, or form, making sure that you understand a bit of the code, can maintain the code, and that it's actually good quality and not thousands of lines of code that could be maintained and modularized and things that sometimes AI tools do for us, sometimes they don't. Okay. Another concept that I think I threw out there in one of my first videos on this subject was context engineering. And I like this term, but I think it's very techy, very tied up into this space. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about context in a moment, so maybe that'll make it fit for you. And I have no problem with that term either. I've seen, I think Simon Whiteley is now talking about vibe engineering, and so I'm cool with that. That's all right with me too. I've heard agentic engineering, agentic engineer, things of that nature. And so my term for all of this is AI-driven development. You with me? I hope so. Let me break down some buckets of AI driven development that I would put things in. So I'd say there's this AI assistant bucket where the person's doing most of the work, and maybe this isn't really AI driven because the person's definitely driving and you have this co-pilot, right? That's where the name came from for that product. This thing helping you out along the way. Beyond that, I think you have this very human in the loop AI coding, which is more of the type of thing I'm talking about. You have developers, you're making design decisions, you're probably working with AI, but also pretty involved in writing up the requirements to begin with. Okay. So, and then I think the way you approach that is whether you get into the sort of the negative connotation of vibe coding, where you aren't really putting much thought into it and not really keeping it as good, clean, quality code, versus anything that has the word engineering in it, where someone's really saying, we are going to build a product, a solution that we will maintain and we will understand enough so that if it breaks in production, we can fix this thing. We might use AI to fix it, but we're not going to just write fix 20 times until it's done, right? I don't think that's realistic for real companies to be doing. All right. Now, this other place that I think people are going, and I am not there yet, is the idea of fully AI driven development. And so that'd be where you probably have different types of agents doing different steps in the process that humans would typically do. There's still, of course, going to be, at least at this point, there's still, of course, some decisions being made and requirements and frameworks being chosen as you get into this, right? So it's not like no humans are involved, but if you get this right, it could drastically reduce how many people are involved. versus just speeding up the people that are involved, which is kind of what these other patterns go. So the way I really been approaching this and trying to, when I can, help train others up, and that's why I'm doing these videos, is this concept of AI driven, where there is a human in the loop and we're using AI as much as we can throughout the process, where it makes us more efficient and where it delivers good outcomes in the end. All right. And so this isn't, we might say, hey, I built this thing in 10 minutes with Claude Code or with Cursor or pick your favorite. That doesn't mean that I built the code that's going to production and going to be released and got it out the door in 10 minutes. I don't think that's realistic unless you have a lot of different agents doing the work and you're very confident or at least trusting in those. So essentially, traditional development has been that the human is writing most of the code, right? And so this new process is that AI is generating and validating and maintaining that code instead with human guidance. All right. I think that's an important piece of the puzzle. I could be proven wrong. I think that with enough effort into building particular agents that have your opinions and best practices built in, we might get less and less human interaction there. But for now, I think human interaction is pretty critical. All right, moving forward. The kind of flow is that you're going to go from design to write this stuff manually to test and then refactor, and then obviously eventually ship it. Whereas now with AI-driven development, we're talking about a plan and prompt workflow. So we come up with this plan about the types of, translating the actual needs into some sort of high-level requirements. We're going to prompt the AI to build with some guidance on kind of what frameworks to work with, right? With some guidelines about what it can do. We're going to review the outputs as it's working, probably not waiting until it builds out a full application, probably different stages along the way. And we're going to prompt the AI to refine it, prompt the AI to write the test. Definitely double check the test is my guidance at this point, but we're going to use AI throughout that process. Okay. All right. Traditional development would be a lot of like developers acting as an implementer and a debugger. Whereas this future view of AI-driven development is that the developer is acting as a director and an architect. Okay. And definitely translating business requirements. At least that's my anticipation, that the developer will be translating business requirements and then directing AI to build things and make sure that they are architected well. All right. Traditional would be a lot of deep hands-on familiarity with the code and probably with really particular syntax of certain languages. Whereas AI-driven development would be a strong understanding of the system behavior and the structure of the code, right? So you might be able to actually build things in a language you really don't know well. I do think you're going to look at some code and read some code at some point. At this stage, that's what I'm seeing. But I also kind of like to know what the code's doing. I do like to control it a little bit. So maybe others are really building quality stuff without that level of detail. I'm not positive on that. Okay. Let me call out some key terms for those that aren't super familiar, and I'll try to keep this brief. So a key term is the context window, and this is the amount of text based on tokens that the model can consider or remember at any time. And so it's kind of what the AI knows beyond what it's already built with as it's generating code for you. Tokens then are the processing unit that equals a character or a part of a word, or maybe a short phrase. So think of it as just a small part of what you're putting into as the message, and that's how the costs are tracked. So you'll hear a lot about tokens if you're just getting into this space. Tool use or function calling is typically when the model itself, the coding tool you have, is able to invoke external functions that reach out to different services and do things that are quite handy. So web search is a tool call. Most of these agents have it already, but as a tool call, that's really important. Things like executing SQL and submitting jobs to Databricks, for instance, you'll need to add some tools that can do that most likely, or at least tell your agent the best tool to use to do that well. Model context protocol is a really popular term. It's simply a standardized way for AI applications to connect to these external tools and to plug in different types of capabilities to your agent. And so I might choose to have a model context protocol server running. And when I am using that, I might use it only in certain types of projects. For instance, if I do have a Databricks MCP server, I may not need it if there's a time where I'm just working on some standard Python work, or I'm building a front end for something that's not going to run on Databricks, right? Okay. And then agent configuration is the concept of coding agents being customized via specific files, and obviously configurations that point you to which MCP server should I be using and what other capabilities can I add into this coding agent that I'm working with. So because it's so critical, I want to cover something that I've kind of compiled some guidance from a few different people I saw on YouTube, plus some individual conversations. So I'll share links to the people that really influenced this sort of view of it. But the concept is the context window is super critical because as it starts to fill up, I end up with lower quality results. So basically what people are saying, this definitely varies by model that you use, but you can kind of expect the first 30% of that context window that you're going to get the very best performance and be in really good shape. As you get to like 30 to 60% of that window, you might end up starting to see some degradation. Should be still pretty good as you get, close to that 60% full. But then that last 40%, as you're filling that up, you're going to get much lower quality results. There's just so much for the LLM to consider. And then there's some various reasons why it's challenging for it to consider all that. So your model itself probably has a context window limit. So I use Sonnet a lot, and it tends to have a 200K limit, 200,000 tokens. And so as I'm working with that, I can kind of see, I'm getting to 70, 80,000 tokens in my window. I'm going to have to clear this out soon. If I'm about to do a really big task, I might go ahead and start a brand new session. Or things like Claude Code have a /compact command that would let it summarize what it's already done and then keep moving forward. And there's some different trade-offs to the options you have there. All right, so if you're using Claude Code, this is kind of a glimpse at what my context window looks like when I start up a fresh session with my Databricks tools included. And so the key point is that percentage full is not super high. It's around 10% here. And I have some skills in place, which are like tools that help me out. And those are also a fairly small portion of this at first. That can grow a little bit depending on how I use them. And certainly more things will end up in the messages space every time I add a prompt and as it pulls more feedback in as additional prompts. Okay, thanks for hanging in there for this video. I know it's a little bit more conceptual and high level than what I typically do. I have others that are more hands-on, so please do subscribe, check out other things on the channel, and hopefully you'll find something that really helps you get hands-on working with this and being successful, especially if you're going like the data engineering path, and in particular if you're using Databricks. So thank you. See you next time.